Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. All right, guys. Today's date, January 22nd, 2025, and this is Got Here. I thought I was muted for a second. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan on Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we do get started, guys, let you know that we are a news podcast. We pride ourselves on being one, which means we give you the most reputable sources, only using the most reputable sources of award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, Daily Beast, Newsmax, whatever extreme left or extreme right publications out there. We simply don't do them. We give you the facts, nothing but the facts. At the same time, guys, we do try to watch our language, but words do fly. At the same time, guys, there may be things that might be shown out here that may be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, how do we really start this? Because it's only been, we're Wednesday, and yet, welcome to the 1950s, ladies and gentlemen, because, unless you've been under a rock, Trump is president. Again, because people don't believe in warnings. But I guess we have to cover exactly what's been done since the last 48 hours. And, well, there's no really other way else to say it, but let's just go ahead and get into it because he did do executive actions. What executive is just that, hey, do you remember when Biden sat there and said, you know what, we should put a cap on life-saving medication? Like, you guys may or may not remember, but not so long ago, we had a little bit of a scare with diabetes, with insulin. A little hard to get to. Folks could not pay the astronomical prices and started rationing insulin, thing you shouldn't do if you're diabetic. Actually had some people no longer with us because of that. So Biden and company decided, hey, let's put a cap on that and put a cap on other life-saving medication, which again is something that Americans have always asked for. The problem is Trump and his drug buddies said, nah, we're going to go ahead and reverse that. So what happened? They did exactly that. What you see right there, ladies and gentlemen, is that he basically said, oh, yes, whatever the President Biden did that I can't take credit for, let me reverse it. Because again, he's been told by his drug buddies, this is not good. Of course it's not good for them. Do you want to know why it's not good for them? Because anything that has a cap on life-saving medication that these corporations make billions of dollars off of course it's going to be bad for business. But again, outside of $30 cap on insulin, $2 out of pocket on generic drugs, and literally a $2,000 annual out of pocket on prescription drugs. Granted, it's not the best thing out there, but at the same time, it's a start. The problem with this is just that now Trump has sat there and said, nah, I'm good. You don't want it. Matter of fact, I don't want it. Matter of fact, you as a company doesn't want it because he believes that everything should go to the states. Except some things, because, that's conservatives for you. Conservatives believe everything should go to the state, except the things they want to hold everybody's heads and use the full power of the federal government to do. In this case, using the fact of taking medication, which, again, a lot of people are not going to understand this yet, and I can't wait for them when they do, is that those that actually voted for Trump are going to sit there and go, probably should ask more questions before I voted for him, because now my insulin, now my heart medication, now my whatever life-saving drug I had that was actually moderately priced for a while is now about to jump back up in price. Blame Trump. There is no other way I can say this outside of blaming Trump, because again, I hate to say this because we're moving right along. Here's the thing that's actually ticked me off. What ticked me off was this article by another name. It's known as equal opportunity, equal employment opportunity. Something that President Lyndon Johnson signed to make sure that everybody gets a fair playing field, because companies at one point weren't trying to make it equal in the workplace, and there was no litigation, no federal mandate to make sure that didn't happen until President Johnson, who did sign his executive order into place, which basically led to the creation of equal employment opportunity, or EEO for short, that eventually became the DEI word. And like most people who don't understand something, you're immediately afraid of it, because DEI is nothing more than just ensuring that there's a fair but level playing field. Because a lot of people don't realize when it comes to DEI. Look at most of your corporations. Most of your corporations, especially in the high level, especially if you're talking executive C-level, CEOs, COOs, the thing is, you won't find a lot of people that look like me in the top 10 of most of your Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies. You won't. And at the same time, a lot of people, it's been asked, we do have qualified individuals out there. Why is it that no companies are taking a chance on us? Well, for various reasons. But at the same time, this is where DEI comes into place, because it basically forces you guys to turn around and sit there and say, oh, we're not racist. Okay, prove it. Now you were actually held to a standard. And I know for a lot of people, they always say diversity hires, but let's be honest, those diversity hires kept you from litigation. Those diversity hires kept you from being sued. Those diversity hires basically kept the doors open for your company. Now, Trump sitting there saying, and I cannot believe it, I got to bring this back up for all those that I'm trying to make sure you understand this correctly. The fact that Trump, not only is he trying to dismantle DEI, he's also trying to send anybody under a federal contract or higher who's also in a DEI position. He wants to send them home on paid leave, but also asking these very same departments, which people can we get rid of? This sounds more like Elon Musk and less like Trump. But Trump says, again, I'll get to dumbass Musk in a minute. But again, that's the whole thing. And then he turns around. And this is the part that kills me, is that you have folks in the conservative rank. And this is why I sit there and say this, guys. Always conservatives, whenever it comes to MLK holiday, will be the first ones to turn around and sit there and say, well, if Martin Luther King was alive, he'd be a conservative. He would see that everything we're doing, he would agree with. No. Martin Luther King had a lot of things, but at the same time, he was definitely not seen as ultra conservative as these individuals think they are. Even more so when you have Trump turning around and sitting there saying, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, he said, quote unquote, Martin Luther King Day in his honor, this will be a great honor, but in his honor, we will strive together to make his dream a reality. We will make all his dreams come true. Why do whenever time Trump talks about a black person, he always sounds like he's trying to personalize with them? Like, I've known King, I've marched with him. No, you really haven't. But at the same time, they're trying to say that by eliminating DEI, it's going to make it equal. This is the delusion. This is the delusion that they live in. This is the world that they live in that is completely delusional, because these safeguards were put in place to make sure you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And the fact that you are sitting there and you're trying to tell us, well, no, that's not how it works. Well, yeah, it is. Because again, I hate to bring this up. The fact that he's removing all of these safeguards, it's like, what we're trying to do? It's like, think of Chernobyl. I know Chernobyl's just weird that it comes out of nowhere, but what was Chernobyl's problem? They kept removing safeguards until there was a meltdown, and now you have an irradiated area that nobody can inhabit. Well, this is the same. Well, think of America that same way. You're removing safeguards that were put in place to basically protect the country. Now, by removing them, you're going to invite chaos. We shouldn't be surprised by this. But at the same time, guys, what may be missing for some individuals is that when you turn around and you remove diversity and inclusion, what's the message that you're really saying? You are saying that, hey, we can do what we want without fear of litigation, without fear of lawsuits, without fear of retaliation. We can basically do what we want now, which is what most companies would love. Because if you haven't noticed, John Deere tried to do a DEI program, and then some white folks, and again, not understanding what DEI stands for, or just follows everything Fox News, got all in a tiffy. John Deere reversed it. Harley Davidson, same way, tried to do a DEI program. Again, people got in a tiffy, started burning their Harleys and selling their Harleys, which I've never understood. And again, Harley Davidson reversed things. Costco put in a DEI program. Shareholders tried to get rid of it, and they said FA and then FO. And I'll give it to Costco. Costco wholesale, I will shop wherever you are at, because y'all are taking a stand and saying, no, our DEI is here to stay. You don't like that? Go kick rocks. And that's all most companies have to do if that's what you truly are wanting to do. But at the same time, we shouldn't be surprised that that's just the tip of the iceberg. Keep in mind, Dorito sat there and said on day one he was trying to do all these executive orders. Yeah. Here's the one that should really tick off people in law enforcement, but they are surprisingly quiet.
The Trump administration ordered all federal employees hired in diversity, equity, and inclusion roles to be placed on paid leave and eventually laid off. The order came in a memo sent to the heads of government departments and agencies.
That comes after the first few prisoners locked up on charges related to the January 6th Capitol attacks were released yesterday. They walked out of prison after President Trump pardoned about 1,500 January 6 defendants and commuted the sentences of 14 prisoners. Among those set free, the former head of the far-right group, the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, and the former Oath Keepers leader, Stuart Rhodes. Speaking at a news conference yesterday, the president defended his pardons and commutations, even though some were charged with violent crimes connected to the riots.
These people have already served years in prison, and they've served them viciously. It's a disgusting prison. It's been horrible. It's inhumane. It's been a terrible, terrible thing.
NBC News White House correspondent Vaughn Hilliard joins us now with more on this. Vaughn, let's start with the ongoing fallout to these January 6 pardons. What else did we hear yesterday from the president on this issue? And just what more do we know about the people who have actually been released so far?
Yeah, last night, guys, he defended his decision to move forward with those pardons. There were 14 individuals who had their sentences commuted. Those were the leaders of the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, who were charged on those seditious conspiracy charges. They also released yesterday from the prison system. But then more than 1,500 that were pardoned, including more than 175 who had either pled guilty or been found guilty to violently assaulting police officers. And when he was asked about this, the president last night at the White House, by including our own Peter Alexander, he essentially sidestepped saying that he would look at each individual case, but that's what he has already done. And the pardon is final. And these individuals have now they have been released through the prison system and are now formally pardoned.
Vaughn, it's been interesting because it seems like this decision is even splitting the GOP. Tell us reaction from senators.
Right. President Trump made the case that these people love their country, was the words that he used, and that they have already served enough time in prison for the events that unfolded on January 6th. But lawmakers on Capitol Hill, Republicans and Democrats, they struck a different chord in response, except for some Republicans who defended the president's decision. Take a listen.
It's a betrayal of the highest order of our Capitol Police officers, who risked their lives to keep us safe.
I think they were absolutely justified. Again, I don't know all the cases. I certainly don't want to pardon any violent actors, but there was real miscarriage of justice here.
I just can't agree. I'm about to file 2 bills that will increase the penalties up to and including the death penalty for the murder of a police officer, and increasing the penalties and creating federal crimes for assaulting a police officer. That should give you everything you need to know about my position.
President Trump was even asked about his own Vice President, J.D. Vance's comments just 2 weeks ago, that he also opposed the pardoning of violent assaulters of police officers. And yet that is the decision that the president made, and it's final.
All right, Vaughn, let's also talk about the other.
Okay, so it's amazing to me um, really and truly, that all these Republicans, again, they said they were split, but these are, oh, it's a sham. This should never happen. This, 1,500, nearly 1,500 domestic terrorists just got a pardon from their leader. And then it's like they want us to forget that January 6th didn't happen. Oh no, Trump beforehand, when he didn't want Mike Pence to stop the electoral count, he didn't talk to a bunch of his own people and talked about, we're going to go down there and stop the steal and I'm going to be right there with you. No, it's almost as if they want us to forget that he basically was the mastermind behind this whole thing, and that he took the last 2 years where litigation should have buried him under the jail, in fact, used the law, twisted itself on advantage, pushed cases and people off cases, only to turn around and somehow be elected president again. This kind of storyline should be put in the WWE. That's all I'm saying. But now it just goes to show you 1,500 people, including the leader of the Proud Boys, including the leader of the other Boogaloo Boys. Those guys who were literally wanting to be terrorists in an American federal building have been pardoned. And again, why? Because Trump loves his crazies. Trump loves his private personal army, because he now realizes, hey, these folks will be the ones to do the dirty work for me. And all I got to do is do this one little pardon. Oh, and they'll love me for it. But again, think about that. This is America, truly. At the same time, his puppet, and I say puppet because Mike Johnson is basically just missing a hand up his ass, has nothing to say about the pardons whatsoever.
Republicans have long said you guys back the blue. How do you justifiably say that when Trump just pardoned a bunch of violent January 6 rioters who attacked Capitol Police? And if those rioters come to the Capitol, will you welcome them back here?
So look, everybody can describe this however they want. The president has the pardon and commutation authority. It's his decision, and I think what was made clear all along is that peaceful protests and people who engage in that should never be punished. There was a weaponization of the Justice Department. There was a weaponization of the events, the following, the prosecutions that happened after January 6th. It was a terrible time and a terrible chapter in America's history. The president's made his decision. I don't second guess those. And yes, it's kind of my ethos, my worldview. We believe in redemption. We believe in second chances. If you would argue that those people didn't pay a heavy penalty, having been incarcerated and all of that's up to you. But the president's made a decision. We move forward. There are better days ahead of us. That's what we're excited about. We're not looking backwards. We're looking.
We believe in redemption. Did this hand puppet really just sit there and say, we believe in redemption? I'm sorry. Where do I go with this? Outside of, really, Mike Johnson? Really? The man who barely got put back in as Speaker of the House? The man who, I guess, is now doing his marching orders. And apparently Trump's hand is significantly up his ass to where he's going to stand and say, well, we got to talk redemption. These people, they've served their time. I was like, dude, what? And this goes to show you guys, and I'm just being honest with you. This goes to show you the level of how much, this goes to show you the level of how much power that idiot Trump has within his party, because nobody will speak against him. Think about that for a second. Nobody will speak against him outside the fact that he just pardoned 1,500 terrorists. Nobody will speak up about the fact that he just reversed the policy on low cost prescription or nearly free prescription drugs in the Republican Party. But they'll be the ones squawking from their little purses. Oh, I don't agree with that at all. Really? So we're going to remember this come voting time when you decide you'll be the one voting against your party, about your party's interests? No, we know he's not. He's going to fall in line like they always do. Because it's amazing how they sit there and say, well, well, it's just I don't believe in that because this whole back the blue, this whole hold the blue line. Capitol police officers lost their life, whether it was by the crowd or by unaliving themselves. At the same time, where is the justice for those officers that were doing their jobs that day when all you sat there and said was, "We're going to let the ones who assaulted you go"? Where's the justice? Because a lot of people are asking that question. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Because, like I said, Trump's only been in office since Monday, and this is what he's done so far. Like, again, removing the U.S. from the Paris climate agreements, which we knew that was coming. He also removed us from the World Health Organization. Because let me tell you why that's detrimental. It's detrimental because the World Health Organization is basically how we combat most outbreaks, diseases, things of that nature. The U.S. is usually leading candidate behind the World Health Organization. Because he's withdrew us from there, that leaves a problem. That means there's not an official country that's actually leading the World Health Organization. Outside of the U.S., there's China. But I can tell you why Trump has done this. And it's because of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And for all those who don't know, that brain leached, brain dead idiot who sounds like he needs a throat lozenge every 5 seconds is now going to be leading our Secretary of Health. Here's the problem with that. You can't get away from stories like this.
Our story involving former presidential candidate RFK Jr. And this one involves a whale. And now an environmental group wants answers.
A whale of a tale has Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in hot water with environmentalists again, just weeks after he admitted to dumping a dead baby bear in Manhattan.
I said, let's go put the bear in Central Park and we'll make it look like he got hit by a plane.
Kennedy faces new backlash. The longtime conservationist allegedly sawed the head off a dead whale back in 1994 after it washed up on a Massachusetts beach. Kennedy reportedly cut off the whale's head and then bungee corded it to the roof of the family minivan before driving it across state lines to bring it back to his New York home so he could study the skull. RFK's daughter, Kit Kennedy, originally shared the fishy anecdote more than a decade ago, calling the stunt normal day-to-day stuff. But the story resurfaced in recent days, leading the Center for Biological Diversity Action Fund to call on federal officials to investigate whether Kennedy violated the Marine Mammal Protection Act, saying, "We hope that the NOAA Office of Law Enforcement, at a minimum, is able to ensure that Mr. Kennedy surrenders any and all illegally obtained wildlife that he continues to possess." The Action Fund has publicly supported Vice President Harris in the presidential race. Kennedy recently suspended his campaign, endorsing former President Trump, and now has secured a position on Trump's team.
I've been asked to go onto the transition team and, to help pick the people who will be running the government.
So the problem with this is, I know a lot of people are wondering, well, what does that got to do with his current position? Well, what it has to do with his current position is that's his mindset. His mindset is he has no problem dealing with dead animals. And at the same time, and I really hate to say this in so many words, the fact that he has no problem explaining it like it's nothing. Oh, I've cut a whale's head off, take it home, examine the head. Oh, I've taken a baby bear and, dumped it in Central Park. And this guy is supposed to be over, he's supposed to be over what people ingest or eat. That's freaking scary, considering the fact that this is a guy who, first and foremost, doesn't believe in vaccinations. Anti-vaxxers, I personally think, are idiots because anti-vaxxers have always, they don't like science. They don't like facts. Because anti-vax will be the first person to say, well, why do we need all these shots? Well, I don't think you noticed, but we had this little problem a couple of years ago called COVID-19, and it's multiple variants. People got sick, lost their lives, and kind of stopped the country for a little while. A lot of us got stuck at home. Remote learning, that was fun. And yet, these same anti-vaxxers, oh, I won't get my kids vaccinated. Your kid is a walking petri dish among others. There's a reason why we get vaccinations. Historically, they work. That's how we beat polio. That's how we beat the measles. That's how we beat the mumps. That's how we beat smallpox. That's how we beat a lot of things that should have wiped us out. And yet, RFK is an anti-vaxxer who is now in a position that not only does he want to dismantle the FDA, he wants to be able to sit there and install his own health policies. And I'm sorry for a guy who, by all means and purposes, needs every herbal tea, throat lozenge, Ricola, and cough drop to be heard, is not the guy you want making health decisions. Not for a country. But again, tip of the iceberg. Let's get to the heart of the matter, because here's one thing I wanted to point out the most is TikTok. Yes, it was an app that we all know and love. Some of us were a little bit more dependent upon than others. And at the same time, guys, it wasn't until that fateful night, January 18th, well, really, because it's owned by China, January the 19th over there, TikTok's U.S. services were cut off. People were angry. People were mad. All the above. And yet, magically, TikTok seems to be back. I wonder why.
The Chinese owned app back online in the U.S. despite a law to ban it after President Trump vowed to take action. Savannah Sellers is with us. Savannah, walk us through this.
Yeah, Lester, so seated just behind or among President Trump's family members, Elon Musk, Amazon's Jeff Bezos, Meta's Jeff Zuckerberg. Also on the platform, as you mentioned, Shou Chew. That's the chief executive of TikTok, an app that Mr. Trump himself tried to ban. Now he's trying to save. It has been a roller coaster few days for the app, going dark for just over 12 hours after a law technically took effect banning it. Now the app is crediting President Trump with bringing it back online. We are anticipating an executive order here concerning TikTok, one that the president has said might outline a 90-day extension for an American to take 50% ownership of the company. That, though, still leaves open questions about the initial national security concerns here by the U.S. government.
Okay, so yes, all of a sudden, TikTok went from, well, it's the U.S. government, they got a problem with us, to now all of a sudden, thank you, Trump. Thank you for your help thank you for your help as far as getting us back online. Many of our subscribers, U.S. subscribers, will love you for it. And of course, Trump taking the victory lap. Oh, well, I'm just going to extend the ban until TikTok is 50% owned by a U.S. person, to which we can go ahead and get a hold of all that data because we can't get it because another company owns it. Which really comes down to it, because you guys may or not remember, and I love to remind people, because there is a significant thing you need to remember about TikTok and Trump. Trump was the one behind all of this. He was the first one he's the one that lit the match, and now he's coming in like the firefighter trying to put out a flame that he started.
Trump's threat to ban TikTok, the widely popular but Chinese-owned video sharing app, added fear that the link to China poses a security risk. ABC's White House correspondent Rachel Scott with what TikTok and its users are saying tonight.
Tonight, TikTok is firing back after the president told reporters on Air Force One, we're banning them from the United States. Reaching 100 million Americans, TikTok is known for its short videos and viral dances. The app stars in disbelief, like Michael Lee sending this message to his more than 35 million followers.
I'm financially supporting my family because of this. I'm literally starting my career and inspiring people and changing people's lives because of this. And
concerns about security with the Chinese-owned app have already prompted the U.S. to ban TikTok on government phones.
Would you recommend that people download that app on their phones?
Only if you want your private information in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party.
TikTok has denied sharing user data with the Chinese government. And according to a Reuters report, the Chinese company ByteDance has offered to divest the U.S. operations of TikTok to make a deal with the White House. Tonight, the app's general manager insists users shouldn't worry.
And when it comes to safety and security, we're building the safest app because we know it's the right thing to do. We're here for the long run and continue to share your voice here.
And the president insists that he does have the authority to ban the app. He signaled that he could take action as early as today, but so far, no word yet from the White House tonight, Tom.
Rachel, thank you.
Now, keep in mind, that is an older publication. Yeah, sure, it is. But I keep pointing this out. 4 years ago, Trump was the one that lit the doggone match. He was the guy that turned around and said, I think TikTok should be banned. I have the legal authority to ban it. No, you kind of don't, but okay. Because as you can see, guys, they had to go through a lot of channels, and mainly because you have the Republican Party of all people, which I still find funny as hell. Oh, they carry the torch. Oh, the Chinese government wants your data. Oh, the Chinese government has your data. They could do a lot with your data. Really? What could they do? I mean, here's my thing. If you're on Facebook, Snapchat, Meta, pretty much any social media app, your data has already been paid and sold to whoever is buying it. So that also being said, you're doing nothing about U.S. apps, U.S. companies using these apps, getting our data. You're doing nothing about them because, the danger is somebody has your data. But until it's somebody you can't profit from, then it's a problem. And then Fox News, because they love fear-mongering, war-mongering, just anything that'll make a 60 to 75, 85-year-old white person just lose his shit. They'll say anything. And at the same time, folks, look what happened. TikTok got banned. Surprisingly, went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court upheld the ban. And then Trump, out of nowhere, has the CEO of ByteDance at his inauguration. And next thing you know, TikTok has been restored. Yeah, I know how this story plays out. See, Trump needs anything and everything to make himself look good. Reason why? Because, he's a dick. He has not produced anything that has actually saved individuals. None of his policies have ever equaled out to something positive. His tariffs and tax plans have left ruin. And this is the same guy that bankrupted a casino. If you can bankrupt a casino, you can bankrupt a country. We've seen it once before. But he wants to use TikTok as a way of, again, he loves the ill-educated, or lack thereof. He loves dumb people. And unfortunately enough, dumb people did vote for him. At the same time, those very same dumb people are still arguing or defending, he doesn't say anything about grocery bills, but it's going to come down. He doesn't say anything about the price of eggs, but it's going to come down. He hasn't, my paycheck hasn't gotten any better, but give him time. He's only been in the office for like 3 days. It is amazing the level of defending his cult will do when the obvious has already happened. Especially with the fact that he's cutting programs, trying to cut unions, remove federal jobs. I mean, what more will it take to get people to understand you basically let the wolf back in because he promised you he wasn't a wolf. He was a sheep just like the rest of you. And yet, with your MAGA-inspired apparel, you smiled and said, "Come on in, sir," and handed him back a country that took nearly 8 years to get back on track again. I'm just saying, wow. But, hey, it's not all bad news. Why? Because somehow, some way, Marco Rubio did get confirmed as Secretary of State. This is actually the first Trump nomination to actually go through. Marco Rubio, again, a man who has zero qualifications, except he is prominent in ass-kissing and brown-nosing, will be the next Secretary of State. He has no credentials. He has no accomplishments. He's basically a squawking head on the Republican Party, and because of that, he is now going to be sworn in to handle state matters. He's another hand puppet that's basically missing Trump's hand up his ass. I am just... there's just no other way to put that, guys. He brings... Here's my thing. He's going to do what is this thing I will say about this. For most Secretary of State positions, you already have an agenda on what you need to do. He's going to go in there and basically, whatever you want, Mr. Trump, kiss your ass, polish the knob, let me know, and then I'll go do my job. And that's what Rubio's going to do. I am just going to throw that out there because I don't see anything positive from this. He is a safe, you know what Rubio is? Rubio is a safe pick. That's all Rubio is. He's safe. He has no scandals that we know of. Trump insulted his wife. He did nothing. He just wanted to find his way into the White House and will gladly bend over backwards to allow Trump to do whatever he wanted to do to get there. Not surprising. But again, we're still going down the list. We ain't got that much to go, though. But this other one, this shouldn't be surprising, but at the same time, why?
Is firing back at President Trump's signing of an order to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico. During his inauguration speech, Trump reiterated he wants to make it the Gulf of America.
America will reclaim its rightful place as the greatest, most powerful, most respected nation on earth, inspiring the awe and admiration of the entire world. A short time from now, we are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
In response to President Trump's declaration, Claudia Sheinbaum said the Gulf of Mexico is internationally recognized and has been since 1607. This comes as Trump is saying it will impose tariffs. The U.S. will impose tariffs in a few weeks. ABC's Matt Rivers is in Tijuana, Mexico, for more on that. Matt, what would it take to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico? And what else stood out to you from the Mexican president's response today?
Yeah, Diane, there is no international law governing the names of international waterways, and so the United States can call the Gulf of Mexico whatever they want, and here in Mexico and in the rest of the world, they'll call it whatever they want. That's essentially what this is. Really, I think it's more symbolic of the overall relationship that's going to be more contentious between the United States and Mexico. There's no question that this is a populist appeal in the United States. It's something that President Trump can sell to his base as an America First policy, and in Mexico, I don't think they're really going to care all that much because it doesn't mean all that much. What they will care about is working with the United States on migration, is those impending tariffs. These are points of contention. You know, when the United States says they're going to declare certain cartels based here in Mexico as foreign terrorist organizations and won't rule out the use of military force within Mexico's sovereign territory, those are the things that they're going to care about much more, no question about it, and it signals a much more contentious relationship.
And Matt, let's talk a little bit more about that potential impact, with the Trump administration saying it will impose 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada on February 1st, as you mentioned, declaring gangs in Mexico foreign terror organizations. What does that mean for U.S.-Mexico relations?
Well, I think the tariffs really are going to be the threat that the Trump administration relies on more than anything else to get Mexico to bend to its will. We saw that during the Trump playbook during the first 4 years. He threatened tariffs against Mexico back then to get Mexico to step up migration enforcement here to stop people coming from the border. Mexico acquiesced. You're going to see Trump use the same playbook this time around, threatening broad tariffs against Mexican exports to the United States in order to get Mexico to play ball on things like remain in Mexico. That's that policy that Trump wants to bring back, forcing asylum seekers to wait for their claims to be processed here in Mexico. You know, the stick in all of this is going to be the threat of tariffs. And so it's going to be something that both sides are going to have to negotiate over. And I think you will see them negotiate because Mexico has leverage when it comes to migration as well.
And Matt, Trump's also making a move for the Panama Canal. Now, you went there to find out what people there have to say about it. What did they tell you?
Well, look, Panamanians have patriotism the same way the United States does, and every single person that we spoke to in Panama, and we spoke to several dozen, to a person, said the Panama Canal is ours, Trump should mind his own business, and all countries have the ability to use the canal. That is something that everyone there agreed on. And so it is not going to be something that the Panamanians just give up. I don't even know how you put a price on the Panama Canal, but it's just more of what we are seeing as very expansionist tendencies from the United States president at this point. But, you know, the Panamanians certainly not going to roll over when it comes to that. Everybody down there saying this is our territory and it needs to be respected.
Pretty much. Just to calm this down. It's 100% right. Gulf of Mexico sits in international waters, which means it's not governed by anybody. Trump can make all the claims he wants. You can sit there and say, well, I want to name it the Gulf of America. Okay. The rest of the world will still call it the Gulf of Mexico. It won't have any basis on that. I mean, that's kind of an empty thing. At the same time, why? What is this whole naming thing? You know, if you name it, you don't claim it. Trump has to know that. I would think he would like to know that, but probably doesn't. At the same time, again, with the tariffs, I feel like an economic... I'm pretty sure there's a video already. I'm pretty sure there's hundreds of YouTube videos out there that explains why tariffs don't work in this situation or don't work in the way that Trump and his cult think they do. And I've said it many times on this podcast that tariffs will not determine or basically, for lack of better words, generate progress because tariffs are paid by the country that receives the goods. Putting tariffs on Mexico does nothing. Putting tariffs on Canada does nothing. Putting tariffs on China does nothing. Not for those countries, because if you haven't noticed, in America, we are not a producing company as we used to be. We become an importing company. About 85% of what we usually get, we get from China. We also get fruits from Mexico. We also get products and electricity from Canada. I'm just saying, they're basically making a mint off of us because, well, American businesses and manufacturers found out that overseas labor is cheaper and at the same time pads the bottom line. So it's not these foreign countries that are basically taking advantage of us. It's American businessmen that sat there and said, hey, we can get our things manufactured over there, have them brought back over here, and we can increase our bottom line. We increase our profits. Here's what tariffs are going to do. Tariffs are going to force those very same American businessmen who basically get their products from China will now pay a heavier toll when they're imported. And do you think those American businesses are going to eat that cost? No. They got profits. They're going to pass the savings on to you. And you, being the American consumer, will pay more. And it does nothing to those foreign countries like China, like Canada, like Mexico. Does nothing for them because they're going to be like, we'll put tariffs on you. But it would be stupid because that would mean our citizens will pay more. At the same time, these tariffs are not going to do what you think they're going to do. They're not going to increase. They're not going to push for American production. They're not going to be pushing for expansion. They're not going to be pushing for our own products. None of that is actually going to happen. Why? Because again, you basically putting a higher price on something that's already being imported. What other choice do you have? It's like Walmart being the only grocery store in town. You may hate Walmart for various reasons, but if it's the only store within 100 miles of where you live, what's your alternative? See, you're stuck. At the same time, where Trump doesn't realize it, his tariffs only prove one thing. He has no idea how to run a business. But then again, he's been in bankruptcy court enough times that he should have his own chair. And also with Panama Canal, we're going to make it again ours. No, we gave that up around President Carter, and rightfully so. Because President Carter was told at one point, if you wanted to hold the Panama Canal for U.S. interests, you would need at least 100,000 troops. You would need roughly the same amount. The amount of troops you would need to hold and defend the canal would be almost adjacent to the theaters of war in Afghanistan and Iraq. That's saying a lot, and all the more reason why we didn't need it. So of course he let it go. And again, the Panama Canal is for everybody that wants to use it. The Panamanian government has sat there and said, fight us if you want to, but everybody can use this canal, even your dumbass. But again, this is Trump's whole thing of being dominant, being a dictator, because for a lot of his voters, that's their fantasy. Their fantasy is seeing a guy who can do what he wants with zero consequence and zero accountability, but claims he's winning. The only thing Trump has won so far outside the presidency is beating jail. That's pretty much it. But move right along, guys, because we got to get to this Department of Government Efficiency of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. But, Vivek Ramaswamy has probably got the quickest entrance and exit out of a quote-unquote non-government department.
Information about Vivek Ramaswamy and his plans.
Yeah, Savannah, Vivek Ramaswamy has an interesting distinction here as someone who will be departing an administration and a post that didn't actually exist yet before he departs it. We have now reporting from two sources familiar with his plans that Vivek Ramaswamy, who was set to be the co-leader of DOGE, this new Department of Government Efficiency that the Trump administration is expected to set up in the coming hours, will in fact not be really taking on that role. He's instead going to run for governor of Ohio. That had been sort of widely rumored. We now have it confirmed that he's expected to make that announcement next week, and that it was impossible for him to do both things at the same time. We just saw Elon Musk in the rotunda. Musk is, of course, the other co-leader of DOGE, who, again, is a very complex and important figure in Trump world. He has no formal role. DOGE itself is something of an outside consultancy. It's not clear how much authority they will have. But nevertheless, Musk, with all of his entanglements with the federal government, particularly in the form of SpaceX's rocket company, which has billions of dollars in contracts with the government, will now be in charge of finding, he says, $2 trillion in cuts to the federal budget. Now, in recent weeks, he's walked that number back, suggesting that a more realistic goal might be $1 trillion. But Musk and the team that they have put in place at some of these agencies will now be moving forward without the services of fellow entrepreneur and tech executive Vivek Ramaswamy instead.
So, long story short, Vivek's out. And you can sit there and say the entire time, well, he can't run for governor of Ohio and also be a part of, okay, let's call it what it is. Let's call it what it is. Trump, Elon, and Vivek all had a conversation. Elon wants it all for himself. And again, there's a reason why I say this is a non-government department, but yet somehow is affiliated with the government. Because Elon is, by all intents, still considered a contractor. A lot of his contracts still align with the U.S. government. SpaceX is somehow still affiliated with us. Teslas are still being used by the U.S. government. At the same time, he's now about to influence government policy. How is this not a conflict of interest? I have no freaking idea. But back to the other piece of crap. So Vivek Ramaswamy, again, has nothing out there except that he calls himself a radicalist. Always saying that his ideas, things of that nature, were never felt or heard, and yet thought he had a shot at being president. Thought. And now he realizes that, hey, I have a shot at running a state such as Ohio. Again, that was his, I hate to say this, guys, that was his prize. His prize was, hey, go run for governor of Ohio, and I'll back you. Because trust and believe, once he starts his campaign run, Trump will come running and do his duty. At the same time, Vivek Ramaswamy, another guy who has literally nothing to show why he should be qualified to not only be a politician, but at the same time run a state. Good freaking luck. But yes, we gotta talk about Elon Musk, that douchebag. Why? Because again, what I'm about to show you guys is a trigger warning. It is going to upset a lot of people, especially those in the armed services. I apologize ahead of time. But again, if there's any other reason to believe that the man in the high castle, great show on Amazon Prime, by the way, but also was always that fear that Nazis have invaded the White House. Well, you be the judge.
You know, there are elections that come and go. Some elections are, you know, important, some are not. But this one, this one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization.
Yeah, let's just stop right there. You're not about to tell me what that man just did, and I stress this very heavily. What he just did, for all intents and purposes, is a fascist salute. There have been people out there who have been trying to defend this, mind you, that he did not do a fascist salute. They're trying to defend it. Oh, that was that salute. Really? American History X, various other publications out there and videos. Elon Musk has retweeted fascist statements. He has retweeted certain fascist videos and pictures. And you're going to sit there and tell me that he's not? And this is a guy who now will be in charge of trying to find cuts in the government. You know what it is? If you couldn't get Stephen Miller, you got Elon Musk. That's what it is. He's basically Stephen Miller. He's basically Stephen Miller if Stephen Miller had money. And, you know, again, Musk is an idiot. He's not a genius. He has not bought or did anything. Everything that he has accumulated was already there. He just had his daddy's diamond mine money to go ahead and do so. So again, the fascists are now in the building. But hey, it's not all bad. Well, it kind of is, because former AG, Merrick Garland, gives his farewell, and again, well, I'll just leave my thoughts after it's over.
We know that only an independent Justice Department can protect the safety and civil rights of everyone in our country. And we know that only an independent Justice Department can ensure that the facts and the law alone will determine whether a person is investigated or prosecuted. Those norms have been woven into the DNA of generations of DOJ employees, career and non-career alike. They are the commitments that ensure we will adhere not only to the letter of the law, but to the rule of law. It is the obligation of each of us to follow our norms, not only when it is easy, but also when it is hard, especially when it is hard. More than 40 years after I first entered this building, it is now time to say goodbye. It will be hard to leave these hallowed halls. It'll be hard to leave the leadership team that has guided the department with such extraordinary skill, integrity, and 24/7 dedication. Lisa, Ben, and Vanita before him, all of our component heads, the leaders of our law enforcement agencies, our U.S. attorneys, and my long-suffering staff. It will be even harder to leave the career workforce, who have been my colleagues, my mentors.
So this is all heartfelt and everything, but we got to address some stuff. The reason why I said we got to address some stuff is because Merrick Garland initially was appointed by President Obama, but at the same time, he was facing a Senate and House of Representatives that was controlled by Republicans, and they were not about to let him have anything. He also got brought up again by President Biden, which he did actually take over from a tumultuous AG such as William Barr. The problem is, where I say I have an issue with Merrick Garland and I have an issue with the Department of Justice, is that you guys for 4 years had the ability to nail Donald Trump. You had the ability to nail Matt Gaetz. You had the ability to nail down a lot of the Republican Party. And what I mean by that is bring them up on charges. Even after Trump had announced his presidential candidacy, he was still not treated as a private citizen. He was treated as a president. And all I can sit there and say is, and I can't lay it all at Biden's feet, because Biden has to be impartial. And like the former AG said, that there has to be an independent Department of Justice. Well, here's the problem. That independent Department of Justice failed. It failed in its processes to hold everybody accountable. I'll start with Trump. Trump literally has multiple cases against him, at least 4 major ones during his campaign. Instead of the Department of Justice enforcing the law, they pushed it back. Why? Well, we don't want to hinder a presidential campaign. What happened to no man is above the law? Or the Supreme Court, mind you, which again, conservative leading, also ruled that certain acts a person does as president, he has immunity from, which Trump and his legal team were all too happy to jump on, except the fact that Trump's a private citizen. Immunity doesn't apply to him. But his cases can be pushed back. Even though 2 cases he's found guilty on, which has actually landed him felon status, his sentencing was, well, nothing. Oh, well, no jail time should come from this. Why not? Any man that is found guilty in mortgage fraud because he defrauded New York of blowing up or inflating the prices of his holdings in order to secure bigger loans, that is fraud. And yet, this man still walks. He's held documents, which he's admitted of, and shown people did not have the clearance of. He has turned around and single-handedly ruined the lives of election workers because him and Giuliani sat there and pointed them out as saying they were the ones that were trying to, quote-unquote, ruin his chances in Georgia. And that case, to which former DA, I say former, Fani Willis was already at the ready to prosecute. And what happened? They found out that she had a relationship with someone on the same prosecuting team and turned around and sat there and said, well, and used that trial to push the time back. And then after that was said and done, then we can't do that because of the campaign. And then eventually, Fani Willis was removed as the prosecutor by the state, by an elected official, Trump appointed, and now that case will be put in the hands of someone else, and that case may just... And that was an election interference case. So I'm sorry, Merrick Garland. I'm sorry. We appreciate your service as AG. We appreciate all that you try to do. But under your watch, the Department of Justice was ineffective. Along with Matt Gaetz, which the report that comes out now, paid for sex with underage women, drug use while even in his congressional office, and yet testimony evidence was not enough to pursue a case. Because why? Oh, well, Matt Gaetz resigned because he thought he was going to be AG. No man is above the law. Where's the Department of Justice in that? Where's the Department of Justice in multiple cases in crimes whenever it comes to politicians? Oh, that's right, because the opinion of the Department of Justice is we cannot indict a sitting president. Problem is, he's not sitting. He is now. But what's the issue with that? Because the next AG, of course, is going to be on Donald Trump, which means he's going to do whatever Donald Trump wants him to do. But I just miss when an AG would sit there and actually do their job to enforce the law no matter who it is, whether a president is sitting or not, because no man is above the law. But as we have seen, apparently it is. And now Merrick Garland is about to ride off into the sunset, and Trump, in power, has avoided jail. So yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Garland. We thank you for your service, or lack thereof. But couple other stories, guys, before we get to the end and explain exactly what's been done with the executive order so far. I can't forget the rest of the Sambos. I am talking about you, Representative Brian Donalds. This man who literally said on a video that he said, "Hey, man, daddy's home." Any man that calls another man daddy outside of those type of relationships should be highly questioned. Especially all those guys that really have a hard on for Trump. That's going to be studied. That's going to be studied in some therapy books. But anyway, the Republican congressman who sat there and said that black people did better under Jim Crow than any other time. Remember that little tidbit? He now wants to basically replace Governor Ron DeSantis because his term limit is coming up. And he now wants to run as governor of Florida. I can only wonder, because every black person that has ever really bootlicked and samboed for Trump, I can only imagine where they've been, because there's only one black person in his cabinet, and he's the Department of Housing, and he's the Secretary of Housing. One black person. And how many black people? How many black people are all, oh, well, Trump's going to do this and Trump's going to do that. And yet, nothing. Not one black person. And honestly, you would think that they're all said and done, he would have had one. Oh, two. I'd be like, you know what? But that's what he does with black people. Even that ratchet ass prayer done by that one Detroit preacher, which again, I meant to get that, but you know, it just annoyed me to see that. But that's Trump. Uses all and any all. And even when a preacher, a religious person, tries to appeal to Trump's better nature, she gets hit with the same type of venom, if you will.
Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land.
What did you think of this? What did you think of the service?
What did you think? Did you like it? Did you find it exciting? Not too exciting, was it? I didn't think it was a good service, no. Thank you very much.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
They can do much better.
Was he hurt? I mean, okay, let's think about this for a second here, folks. All the bishop did, the bishop, Marion Edgar Budd, all she did was simply say, appeal to your better nature. You said that you felt the hand of God on you. Okay, cool. You felt the need to serve. Okay, cool. Then help the others. Yes, she pointed out the immigrants who may not have documentation, or those that may not have all this be legal citizens in this country. And what did Trump do? I didn't think it was very good service. Did you guys think it was? I didn't think it was a very good service. Are you kidding me? This goes to show you, and I say this all the time, this goes to show you the type of person Trump really is. We're barely 3 days in, 3 days, guys, into this presidency. And yet, this man has zero compassion. If it's not about him, he won't talk about it. If it's against him, he'll down it. At the same time, he's president now. So he feels like he's effing bulletproof. But here's the one thing I would love to say that Joe Morton says in this clip. At the same time, this should be said to all white folks that think just like him, because this is freaking accurate.
Will you please contribute? Say something.
You want me to say something? Fine. I'll say something. You people. You're not a race. You are a virus. You destroy the world. Everything beautiful you poison. You drag us from our homes. You rape our daughters, murder our sons. You crack our spines and do all you can to break our will. You stab us. Then you put the knife in our hand and tell us it's our fault. And if you don't do it yourself, you stand by, close your eyes, and pretend there's nothing wrong. And then you pray to your God to silence our screams so that you can enjoy the happiness that we built for you with our blood. But it's not your fault. It's the only way you know how to be. And the only thing that will change anything is if another virus comes along and does to you what you do to us. And I hope that happens very soon.
Well, this evening obviously hasn't gone as I'd hoped. And I think I'm having a full-on panic attack right now.
Yeah, as you should. Panic attack, as you should. Want to shout out Joe Morgan, because Joe Morton, sir, you, if anything from a monologue standpoint, wow. Because, yeah, I mean, there's no other way I can sum that up. So anyway, folks, let's just call it what it is, shall we? As we wrap this up. So you want to know why I wanted to go over the executive orders that he's done so far? Well, let's put it to you this way. Shout out to Pete for giving me his graphic. So Trump's been in office since Monday. What has he done? Call a state of emergency to shut down the border. He's trying to end birthright citizenship. Unfortunately, the 14th Amendment has a problem with that. Halts the Afghanistan refugee program that actually is for those that have actually helped the U.S. Army during the war. You know, the folks are actually supposed to be flew over and given placement in the U.S. That's halted. Pardoned 1,500 domestic terrorists for the January 6th attack. Called for the U.S. to draw from the Paris Climate Agreement and World Health Organization. He called for all federal DEI positions to be put on paid leave, ending all federal DEI initiatives, i.e. the Equal Opportunity Act, enforcing all federal remote workers back in office, instituting a gender policy for only male and female will be recognized in the U.S., reinstating military members who left the military because they did not want to be vaccinated to reinstate them and with back pay, extended the ban to delay TikTok only after 4 years ago, just calling for it to be banned. Wants to enforce tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China, still in the works. Wants to create the External Revenue Service to collect tariffs from other nations. Let me say this again. Wants to create a department within the IRS called the External Revenue Service to collect tariffs from other nations. Good effing luck. He also wants to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, rename Mount Denali back to Mount McKinley, a change that was made during the Obama administration. At the same time, guys, he wants to raise things he's already done. Raise prescription drug prices, end civil rights and DI protections in government, ban African American and gender studies in all level of educations, ending climate protections, increasing Arctic drilling, deregulating big business in the oil industry, promote and expedite capital punishment, mass deportations of immigrants and incarceration in camps, ending birthright citizenship, banning Muslims from entering the country, and eliminating federal agencies like the FDA, the EPA, the NOAA, and more. Now, keep in mind, for all this talk that he sits there and says, I don't know about Project 2025, and yet he seems to be checking the entire effing list. So what are we getting at here, folks? Yeah, it's a shit show. It's only been 3 days. Your price of eggs are not going to go down. Your price of groceries are not going to go down. Your gas is not going to go down. Pretty much anything that you purchase is, if you think it's going to get lower, it's not. Because why? Tariffs, a lack of regulation, and at the same time, bending over for his buddies, especially in the tech world. The next 4 years are going to be hell. They are. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And Trump, in his own world, still thinks he's a miracle worker. That just goes to show you that there should be term limits on how long you can be president and still consider yourself sane. But we're going to go ahead and move on, guys, to our feel-good segment, because usually how the Frack We Got Here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom, sometimes making you faith in humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday, hump day. Tomorrow is Friday, which is Thursday. And we want to leave you guys out with some positivity. I know we laid a lot of Debbie Downer stuff, but we will leave you guys out on a positive note. And this kid getting sung happy birthday, when really by just, whenever you get sung happy birthday, it's always great to have people around you singing it, people that you know, that you love, and just to be surrounded by friends and family. Well, unfortunately, this kid actually had strangers, and yet somehow it was still cool.
Come on, everybody.
All right, his name is James. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear James. Happy birthday to you. Woo! Happy birthday.
I don't care who you are, whether it be strangers or not. Getting something happy birthday is always a fun thing. I'm just saying. But that being said, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast. I do thank everybody for liking, for watching, let people know it's live. I really appreciate that. It is a new format, so we're still working out the kinks. I know if the video's grainy or if it's just delayed. Trust me, we're working on it. Bear with us. It's only going to get better because we had to leave StreamYard because StreamYard said run your pockets. And I'm sorry. I got family. I got kids. So, can't do that no more. But shameless plug before we do get out of here, guys. I do first want to talk about BlurredStation.com. It is the vehicle, the table that we've always asked for to where our content, our viewership, and most importantly, our dollars should be going back to us. We love Tubi. Tubi's great, but Tubi is actually owned by the same guy who owns Fox, and Tubi is well worth over $100 million, and that is due to our viewership and our patronage. That same thing can be done at Blurred Station. Simply put, guys, go to BlurredStation.com. Select the Join Now button. Select the Blurred's Eye View Affinity membership. Select myself, Black Spartan, or anybody else there. It is $10.99 a month to view Blurred Station. And, of course, you can view Blurred Station across all devices and smart devices as well. Trust me, you will not be disappointed about the content that we have there. But again, it is a table that is for us, by us, and for us to actually enjoy and go forth. So definitely check out BlurredStation.com. Also, check out APR TV or AlwaysPressRecord.com. Why? Because our show, like How the Frack and the other shows, can be seen there. You can find it there at Always Press Record TV, or you can actually go to the APR TV app on your smart devices. And again, another table, another place to where we'll be able to enjoy content that's for us, by us, and again, our patronage should go there. Now, runforoffice.org. You've heard me say this, guys, a lot. Why? Because this is how those right-wing idiots did it. That basically they infiltrate from the bottom and work their way up to the top. We can do the same thing if you feel the need to call for public service, whether it's locally or from a national, federal level. Definitely go for runforoffice.org. You can definitely type in your address that you see on the screen there, and from there, we'll actually guide you on how you can get on ballots, how you could actually sign yourself up, and hopefully be able to serve in a public capacity of some sort. It is getting to the point now, guys, that we can no longer just sit by and hope someone else does it. We all need to be activists in our own ways. And if you believe one of those ways is to serve an office, then definitely do so. Check out runforoffice.org. Now, with that being said, guys, you can find me, Black Spartan _Spartan 615 on the interwebs. Pretty much talk more than just politics, guys. The only I ask is just don't be weird. That's the only thing I ask. Don't be weird. I don't want to get this whole blocking thing. At the same time, guys, How the Frack We Got Here can be found wherever your podcast can be seen or heard, whether it's Apple Music, Google Play, Spotify, things of that nature. Like it, share it, subscribe to it. And again, guys, we cannot do this without you. I see a lot of people like the show and view it, and I appreciate it. But guys, let us know, like it, share it, subscribe, because again, much like PBS, we cannot do this without you. Our whole mission at How the Frack We Got Here is about informing, and we cannot do that unless you guys do your part too. That's all I'm saying. But the last thing that's about How the Frack We Got Here, guys, is all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information to make up your own mind, but we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do better in society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, and hopefully one day down the line, electing our first black woman to be the first Madam President. All great things. When we don't learn from history, guys, we are doomed to repeat them. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up at our paychecks? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack We Got Here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and I promise we will get through this. Peace.